This week, I emerge from Vault 111 to discover a world forever changed by Fallout 4. John tests the limits of his patience as he tackles the world's most punishing role-playing games. AOIFE charts the blurring of the lines between Western and Eastern RPGs, and these irradiated super mutants ponder the past, present, and future of Fallout. We just want to start a flame in your heart on this episode of Video Game Nation.
Good morning, sir.
How'd a girl like me ever get so lucky, huh?
Oh my God!
Few games have ever left me as conflicted as Fallout 4. If it was a house, it would be a gigantic, slightly run-down mansion, the sort where you can easily get lost trying to find the toilet and just as easily trip up on a loose bit of carpet or get stuck in said toilet because the door handle's just fallen off. Which is to say that it's a game that's at once incredibly grand and ambitious, but also fraying around the edges. And for a sequel 7 years in the making, that's pretty disappointing, especially as exactly the same criticism could be leveled at Fallout 3. But, like the game itself, I'm starting with the end. Fallout 4 is the first in the series to show you life before the bombs dropped, giving you a brief glimpse of an alternative 21st century where the 1950s carried on for another 120 years. It's all very twee and lovely until, of course, this extended atomic age ends in predictably explosive and horrific fashion, leaving you and your family to duck and cover in an underground vault until it all blows over. But as anyone familiar with the Fallout universe knows, these vaults are not the safe havens its occupants believe them to be. Before long, in game time at least, you're emerging from your ravaged bunker prison to discover that your idealistic, pastel-hued hometown in Boston is now 50 shades of brown and home to cockroaches the size of a dog.
I think the secret to what makes Fallout so interesting is that it's actually filled with stuff. It's filled with just really interesting characters, really quirky little story beats, which other post-apocalyptic games and other post-apocalyptic fiction kind of doesn't bother with. You know, it's kind of bland and generic all the time, whereas Fallout is full of character.
Fallout has always been very funny. It really does make fun of, it's got this kind of ironic nature to it that is really likable.
Fallout is a unique game because it's the most depressing game that you want to play. It's like, it's post-nuclear war and you're walking around on your own, by yourself, trying to survive because there's cannibals out there and mutants and rats. And you're like, yeah, this is my sort of game. I don't know why I like it. It's slow, it's cumbersome, bugs everywhere. This game was buggy as hell. But I loved it. I lost my whole save game. Start again. It's fine. It's Fallout.
Once you've dealt with the enormity of the situation at hand in record time, your mission is clear. Find what remains of your family, and, well, you haven't really thought that far ahead yet. As with any Fallout game, the urgency of your task soon dissipates as you realize that Boston is now yours to roam at your leisure, and it's absolutely stuffed with folk who either need your help or want to succeed where the nukes failed. It's a familiar mix of exploration, gunplay, fetch quests, and lengthy conversations, although this time there's some added town planning to keep things interesting. Well, I say interesting. Certain areas of the map can be turned into settlements, refuges for those Bostonians who didn't fancy becoming career psychopaths. And despite a centuries-long absence and no prior architectural experience, you're the one that everyone's looking at to do all the rebuilding. And this, for me, is where the cracks start to show. First-person construction can work, see Minecraft, but Fallout's approach feels bolted onto an engine that was never intended to support it and is fairly clumsy as a result. It's also poorly explained and incredibly easy to accidentally squander rare resources on, and without a god's eye view of the settlement area, building can feel like a chore. Taking responsibility for bringing civilization back to an uncivilized wasteland is an excellent idea, but the execution could do with a little renovating of its own. Fortunately, it's also almost completely optional, and if you choose to ignore it, there's still dozens of hours worth of stuff to see, do, and blow into tiny pieces. Or indeed craft from tiny pieces. While the world-building aspect isn't hugely compelling, the weapon and armor crafting most definitely is. Previously, scavenging was fairly pointless, amounting to little more than a means of weighing you down and earning a few extra bottle caps. Now, everything can be scrapped and turned into modifications that can transform even the flimsiest pistol into a deadly Frankenstein's monster of a firearm. To complement these new systems, Fallout's much maligned gunplay has also received an overhaul. You still shouldn't expect Destiny-level smoothness though, because for all its first-person shooter trappings, this is still very much an RPG at heart. Ultimately, you're still at the mercy of statistics, and no amount of quick reflexes and pinpoint accuracy will save you if you're up against overpowered competition. Of course, there's still the option of resorting to the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System, or VATS as it's affectionately known.
Well, the VATS mechanic is ideal for someone like me who's terrible at shooting, because yeah, I love being able to just pause and just have a think about it and then, you know, carry on. I'd like to see the VATS mechanic in all video games.
As someone that enjoys a lot of first-person shooters, like just stopping the game and picking where you're going to go, to me, has never been a particularly exciting system. I do understand that it adds a sort of tactical element to the game and adds that sort of role-play style that I think people are after. But for me, I prefer just solid shooting mechanics.
The first thing they do when they press the button to slow down the time is, how much percentage do I have on the head? Can I go for a headshot on this? That's the only reason you press the button. Can I go for the slow-mo headshot?
I think, you know, everyone loves choice, really, at the end of the day, you know, and it sort of adds a little bit of an extra element there when you can kind of choose how you're going to maim someone. I still think there should be a groinal choice though, right?
Fallout 4 isn't a game that's interested in winning new fans, which is at once admirable and a little wrong-headed. Rather than making a concerted effort to tackle the series' fundamental weaknesses, it chooses instead to focus on its existing aptitude for open-world storytelling and emergent play. That's no bad thing, but in a post-Metal Gear Solid 5, Witcher 3 and GTA 5 world, it can feel like something of a relic at times. It doesn't rob it of its scrappy charm and ability to make hours feel like mere minutes, but it's difficult not to be a little disappointed. Proceed with caution. Ooh, sweet. While I figure out whether to spend my skill point on improving my critical line remembering skills by 4%, or a PA who brings me coffee on demand, here's level 42 presenter John Robertson with his guide to the world's toughest RPGs.
Hello, radioactive friends. Hi, Def. High five. So, you've emerged from your dark, smelly vault and are exploring a strange new world. Congratulations, you're a gamer, and you've just left the house to go to the shops. RPGs are the biggest, longest, most immersive adventures around, but here's 5 RPG worlds that are just neighbourhoods you wouldn't park your car in. The Dark Souls games are like going to school, but everyone just hits you, and you can only learn when they're hitting you. But don't worry, because you're going to get this out of your system when you're 40 and paying a woman in leather for something quite similar. Dark Souls is a deliberately challenging game that won't hold your hand, or look at you, and sometimes spits in your food. Why is your character here? What the hell is going on? Why can everything literally kill you? You'll find out by piecing together fragments of the story. And your skull. But don't worry, the Dark Souls online community sometimes leaves hints to help. Well, help you die, because the Dark Souls games aren't games, they're euthanasia with easier controls. RPGs used to be the strict domain of sword and sorcery, but there are no swords here, you'd only use them for harakiri. In Takeshi's Challenge, you aren't a hero, you're a Japanese worker who everyone wants to punch, and your main enemy is your midlife crisis. Quests include draining your bank account, divorcing your wife, getting drunk, and singing karaoke for an hour. A genuine hour. You can't even level up, but then that's what a midlife crisis is. Called Mother 2 in Japan, this is an adventure that starts off cheerful and ends with tears and oblivion, like the Video Game Nation Christmas party did last year, and if I have my way, will again. You're a kid, you've got some kid friends, an asteroid has hit your town, and there's a bee from the future who sends you on a mission, and only losers don't take life advice from bees. Earthbound is a JRPG that knows how to lead a player from jolly good fun to mind-bending panic. You start in a world of chubby children and sassy townspeople. You end up inside the disintegrating mind and body of Gigius, a villain who may just be a screaming cosmic fetus. Fatally wound Gigius, and this is what you'll get. Most modern games are RPGs. If you can level up your character, or the storyline is altered by your choices, or there's some kind of shop system for items and abilities, it's a bit of an RPG. The bouncer, well, the bouncer is what happened when the makers of Final Fantasy tried to make Final Fight. It's simple: add violence, add thugs, take out all the waiting, get rid of the spells, chocobos, final and fantasy, and keep the hair. It's a real-life RPG with brain damage, and there's at least 3 branching paths in the game's plot, which is pretty good. I mean, you're a bouncer. The whole game should go, oh, I'd like to play this game. Not in those shoes, mate. This game was sold to me with the words, it's Golden Axe, but on the PS3. Ha! It isn't. Dragon's Crown is swarms of gorgeously animated enemies and jacked up bosses running rampant over the most sacred thing in RPGs, the menu. Remove the character development and an RPG is party planning for elves. Oh, should I wear the enchanted gloves and the enchanting pants? Have I brought with me the sainted hackpin of Oregon? Oh, I do hope no one turns up in the same outfit. Oh, magic hands. Dragon's Crown has menus. You can buy the thing that has more numbers than the other thing. It just makes almost no practical difference. There's only a few changes the weapons make, mostly cosmetic, and the monsters don't care if you're wearing your fractal lederhosen blessed by the Pope of Badgers. Screw up and you're gonna die.
Oh, lovely. You asked for soy milk, right? Great. Half calf? Excellent. Stevia, not sugar? Oh, what exactly do I not pay you for? Useless! I knew I should have gone for that line remembering thing. Join us after the break. Well, we'll be back with more stuff.
I want to see an animal RPG. That's right.
Merry Christmas from Sky Movies.
Welcome back. Now, anticipation for Fallout 4 was pretty feverish, which isn't surprising considering that fans have had to wait 7 long years for a full-blown follow-up. So what is it about this bleak vision of a retro-tinged, radiation-riddled America that attracts such fervour? We put the question to these dwellers of Vault 145 shortly before all the unpleasantness.
War. War never changes.
The appeal of the Fallout franchise is exactly the same as the appeal of the Elder Scrolls franchise, which is to say that in this world of ever populated multiplayer experiences where you're never disconnected from anybody, there is a big group of people who just want to go home and play a game on their own. They don't want anyone else watching them, they just want to just play it.
The older you get, the more things you have to do, the more bills you have to pay. So the idea that you can just be in a world and the only thing you have to worry about is survival, which, don't get me wrong, is actually way worse than having to pay bills. But it does appeal to a part of your head where you're sort of like, yeah, this is weirdly relaxing.
Careful there, sport.
We all like to think about what the world would be like if it all came crashing down and how we cope. And I think that's really realised very well in the Fallout games.
I think the appeal of the Fallout franchise is it's probably what's going to happen to us in the future. And it's almost like a training program for everybody. Because it's like, we know that's where it's going to go. It's like a zombie attack. What would you do?
Being able to kind of, go through these like expansive worlds. And I also think that just the added benefit of like when the post-apocalyptic world's kind of grumpy, you don't even have to pick up after yourself.
For me, the appeal of the Fallout franchise is that it feels like it's what would happen if there was an apocalypse. What would happen is that it would just be unremittingly bleak. And I find there's something about that I find very compelling. And I think Fallout captures that really well.
From looking at it from the outside, I'd say the two main things must be a love of radiation and shonky character design.
Oh, it's really you!
My favourite Fallout game is the original Fallout 1, which was released in 1997, but which I didn't play until 2010. And it is a revelation. It's a revelation. In my opinion, it's better than the Bethesda Fallouts. It's so well written, it's so clever, it's deeply intelligent, and you die. All the time you just die, and that's it, and you have to start again. If you make a bad decision, it's like, oh, well, you screwed that up, good luck. The thing about the Bethesda Fallout games is that they're very much trying to make you have fun all the time. The original Fallout games didn't really care about that.
Fallout New Vegas, probably. I went pretty deep with Fallout New Vegas. I mean, Fallout 3 also a standout entry. I never really played the like older ones, but Fallout 3 was when I jumped on, but I think New Vegas was the one I really dug deep in.
The origins of the Fallout series is actually a game called Wasteland, which came out in 1988. And like back then, technology was so sort of backwards that they couldn't fit all the text into the game. So sometimes you'd be playing and then it would say, turn to page 14. And you'd have to like get the manual and open it to page 14 and then it would tell you like what was happening in the game. And I love that. I think they should bring that back for the new Fallout games, you know, to encourage kids with like reading and that.
Sounds great.
I only played Fallout 3 because I was a fan of the Elder Scrolls. I loved Oblivion and I loved Morrowind, and I was like, yeah, these games are great. And I was like, I'm loving it. I was like, I didn't think I'd like these kind of games. I'm walking around reading books. I was reading about all this useless information that had nothing to do with the game. And I was like, great. I was like, what else are they making? Oh, they're making this post-nuclear war game. Like, if it was like 1950s, but like someone pressed the button and then like, boom, and you were like a survivor. I was like, yeah, let me play that.
I would really love to see remakes of Fallout 1 and 2. I don't know whether Bethesda would do them or someone else, but I'd love to see a graphically updated version with the same kind of text and the same kind of attitude as the first two Fallouts. From Bethesda, I'd quite like to see what they could do with something that wasn't Elder Scrolls or wasn't Fallout. I'd quite like to see what they could do with a whole new fictional universe, especially maybe a sci-fi one.
Because it used to be that when generations ended, developers would move on and try and do something new. And instead, what we've seen in the last sort of decade is a lot of people just carrying franchises on just indefinitely. And it's like, well, you know, Fallout 3 was great. I'm sure Fallout 4 is great. But can you imagine if they just did something completely new? Like, that would be even better, wouldn't it? And then you'd have something that this generation could hang its hat on. So I'd love to see Bethesda go and do something new next. I'd love to not see another Elder Scrolls game for like a decade.
What's wrong with him, huh?
Yeah, I think it's time for Bethesda to try its hand at something new. I think, you know, they've done very well with the old post-apocalyptic thing and the elves, but, you know, maybe they could do something a bit sci-fi or maybe a karaoke game. Why not?
I mean, I would love to see more Elder Scrolls, don't get me wrong. I really went deep with Skyrim. That game was great, but I do like the idea of a sci-fi style game like Skyrim or Fallout, where I can just explore a giant futuristic planet or go through space. Just generally for me, if you just put sci-fi in anything, I'm gonna be happy. So you take a game I love and put it in a sci-fi world, gold.
Come in.
Completely different. It's clear that their whole team is talented and it doesn't matter what they do, they'll make an open world about anything. I want to see an open world about something that hasn't been explored in gaming yet. I want to see an animal RPG. That's right. You choose what animal species you are, and you go out and you start taking out other animals. Yeah. Set it in like Africa, and then you'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna choose to be an elephant, and then someone else might choose to be a giraffe. And you just go around just like, yeah, I'm gonna be a giraffe that takes on an elephant and wins.
For me, the reason I've not had much to do with, I've dipped into Fallout 3, dipped into Skyrim, but the reason I've not stuck with them is I could really do with a game that doesn't take quite so long to complete. I must have put maybe 20, 30 hours into each and, you know, got a little way through it, but I don't have time. So if you're, you know, I imagine if you're at uni, you know, you've got more free time during the days or when you're not in class and things to do it, but I'm in my 30s and I've got work and things to do. I can't play 100-hour games. So if they could find a way of getting the essence of what I do enjoy about those games and squeeze it into a 20-hour version, I could probably finish it. But by the time you come back to it, I've forgotten what the buttons are or what the story was.
The role-playing game, or RPG for short, is one of gaming's broadest genres. If I say the words Eastern RPG to you, odds are you'll think of Final Fantasy, Phantasy Star, Persona, or even The Legend of Zelda. If I say Western RPG, you'll think of The Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Fallout, or Fable. The point is, these two styles from opposite ends of the world have, traditionally, been quite different.
The earliest Eastern RPGs were released by Koei, with the first being The Dragon and Princess in 1982, which introduced many of the classic RPG elements we still see today. The story was full of high adventure and, unsurprisingly, tasked players with rescuing a kidnapped princess. This template would go on to be used in some of the biggest Eastern RPG franchises, including Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest in later years.
When compared to many Western RPGs at the time, whose characters were more of blank slates, Eastern RPGs featured casts with distinctive personalities.
As well as turn-based RPGs, action RPGs also proved popular in Japan. Games like Dragon Slayer, Hydlide, Ys, and of course, The Legend of Zelda. Link is one Eastern RPG character that went against the norm actually. His design was purposefully less detailed, and yet he still had more defined personality than most nameless avatars of American or European titles.
Back in the West, RPGs date even further back to the mid to late 1970s, as a result of early university mainframe text-based RPGs. These early RPGs, like Dungeon and D&D, were based on pen and paper role-playing games, like Dungeons & Dragons and, of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Fast forward a couple of decades and several studios have become synonymous with the Western RPG, notably BioWare for titles like Jade Empire and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and Bethesda for its massive, sprawling worlds of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Though a lot of Western RPGs still owe much to the influence of those early pen and paper role-playing games, for mechanics and systems, many Western RPGs favour real-time combat, simplified mechanics, and skill-based interfaces over turn-based gameplay.
So, speaking in generalizations, you could say that in the past, Eastern RPGs were known for their focus on story and character, whilst Western RPGs were known for their focus on world building and intricate gameplay systems. But in recent years, the distinction has not been so clear-cut.
From Software, the Japanese studio that developed Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, has built games that all feature typical Western RPG elements like intricate real-time combat and blank canvas player characters. On the other hand, Polish developer CD Projekt Red is responsible for the Witcher trilogy, a series of games often cited for having the best scriptwriting in recent memory, which features rich characterization and storytelling similar to an Eastern RPG. And even games like Mass Effect are often credited for blending Western mechanics and novelesque writing with the cinematic style, streamlined action, and rewarding character interactions of Eastern console RPGs.
The fact is, the two styles aren't as distinct anymore, and advances in technology and game localization, coupled with the fact that many games must now be multi-platform in order to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, mean that old traditions are disappearing fast, and many developers now favour a blending of both styles in order to try something new.
Sometimes, as with the Final Fantasy series, attempts to merge Eastern and Western styles aren't received all that well by fans. But the enduring popularity of the role-playing genre means we still have plenty to choose from. Just in the last few years, we've had everything from Xenoblade Chronicles to Deus Ex Revolution via the Banner Saga, all showcasing how diverse and exciting the RPG genre can be.
And whatever your taste is, whether it's Ni no Kuni or Dragon Age Inquisition, one thing is clear: you'll have more games to get through than you have hours in the day.
Are you kidding me? This is at least 2 degrees above optimal drinking temperature. Were you dropped on your head as a kid? This was supposed to be a perk. Anyway, that's all we've got time for this week, so you can keep yourselves busy on the official Video Game Nation Facebook page or on Twitter using the hashtag VGN. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week, which is more than I can say for some people. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Sorry.
More money going the journey in £1 Million Drop tomorrow at 9 here on Challenge. A troop of troublesome rhesus monkeys go on the rob in Monkey Thieves over on Pick at 7:30. Yeah, you heard me correctly.